What's up, everyone? And this is Next Level Thinking. What's up, everyone? And we're ready to get things going. As always, it's another great episode of Next Level Thinking. It's your host, Chris Holmes, and today I have a lovely guest by the name of
Jeff Fuller.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and get the ground running. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a young-looking 46. I live here in
Yeah,
Waterbury Center, Vermont, right by Still, Vermont. So if there's any skiers, it used to be the ski capital of the East way back when, but I was born in Seoul, South Korea, adopted by a family in Yakima, Washington, marked a failed adoption, readopted by a family in Waterbury Center, Vermont, and that's where I grew up. Went to Bible college, lived in Colorado. I'm married, 20 years married. My son's 19, daughter's 17, and full time I'm a pastor, an aspiring podcaster, a lover of sports, and I just love hearing people's stories and learning from those and sharing those as well. So that's me pretty much in a nutshell.
Awesome. Also seems like we got a lot of things to dig into. So I want to make sure I got this correctly. So you weren't originally born in America. America, is that correct? You came here?
No, yeah, Seoul, South Korea. I
Okay.
was found. I was left on the doorsteps of a police station,
Oh,
and then taken to an orphanage, and then had some foster parents when I was really, really young, and then adopted by a family in Yakima, Washington. My Korean name was Shin Young Suk. My first
hold on.
adopted name.
Let me try to pronounce it. Don't laugh at this. You said
No, it's good.
Shimon Shook. Is that correct?
No,
Close enough. Shin
Shin Young
Young
Suk.
Suk.
Yeah.
There I go. A
Yeah.
little education for myself.
So it's pretty easy. But then I was adopted by a family in Yakima, Washington, when I was about 8 months old. Lived there till I was about a year old, and they changed my name to Christopher Weedmark. And when I was in college, I tried to find that first adopted family just to let them know I turned out okay, or I was doing okay, but I was never able to do so. And then when I was a year old, probably a year and a month, year and 2 months. I was adopted by my family in Vermont. Sophisticated rednecks, we say, but we're sophisticated something, but grew up here in the Green Mountain State. So, yeah.
Gotcha. So I want to dive a little bit deeper. So, like, from that childhood experience, what are some learning lessons that you kind of captured from that? Because just being left at the doorstep at like a very young
Yeah.
age, it can affect someone when they become an adult. So, like, can you give the audience a little bit of insight or like your learning lessons along the way from that experience?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, not to oversimplify, but I kind of realized God had a plan for my life. So if you believe in God, believe in a higher power, for me, that's how I was raised. And so I always believed God had a plan for my life. When I was younger, early teenager, my parents actually adopted three Korean kids, including myself, from three different Korean families. They couldn't have biological children of their own, and actually they were put on a waiting list for a third because I'm the youngest. You can tell I'm kind of the baby, kind of the spoiled one. But
Not a spoiled one.
but it was just one of those times where they never had to tell us we were adopted. They get to tell us we were chosen, that they got to choose us. And early on, I didn't really process it a lot until I got married. Then my wife was saying, I imagine your biological mom crying the entire way to that police station, leaving you on the doorstep, hitting the door when you were just an infant in that basket. And my wife just brought a new understanding of perspective of my biological mom, just in tears, but believing that there was something better than the life that she would have been able to provide for me. And just understanding that. So always just figuring out my identity, my purpose, the why. It's through hardship, people make decisions, and we try to respond obediently to the plan that God has for us, and we just learn along the way and learn so much from other people as well.
Now you hit on two different words. I'm going to hit them one at a time. You said purpose and your why, and that kind of reminds a lot of things
Yeah,
what Eric
yeah.
Thomas be hits on, like finding your why. But let's start with purpose. When you hear the word purpose, like what comes to mind? Like what does that mean for you?
For me, the word purpose is simply like um, after the why. It's For me, the why comes more naturally, but the purpose is like to add value to people, to increase my knowledge. Somebody said that the best leaders don't realize they're leading because they're so busy learning. And I think once
Hmm.
you understand your purpose is just to be continually growing, then you just find comfort. And you don't have to be the know-it-all; just be a great student, and that's a great purpose to have.
I definitely agree with that. Is to always stay in a student position because I feel like once you stop learning, and that's when you actually start to die inside. Like you never know. You can learn from different people's experiences. Of course, you have the fundamental educational system, but there's so many different things you can learn from skill sets and all that, and just being innovative.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And surrounding yourself with the right people. And it's been said that if you're the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room. But
No, wait, no,
unfortunately,
wait a minute. Now you know that may have hit somebody right there. That said, like, if I'm the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Go a little bit more further than that.
well, I just think for me, I love sports, and there's something always about being the best player on the team. But sometimes you have that false sense of security that you're all good, and you always need to be pushing and stretching yourself. You find confidence in being comfortable with who you are, but understand like life is learning and learning through struggle and pain and tragedy and chaos. And as my wife has cancer, stage 3 colon cancer, and she's halfway through her first set of chemo treatments. 12 treatments, 6 months worth. We're just trying to figure out, okay, God, how do we take that next step? How do we be learning in the middle of this storm?
Okay, so I definitely got to get much prayer for that, and everything will go well. But
Thank you.
I feel like that's a great point to put a value. Like, what do you tell a person when they're facing something that's like very traumatic, or just like you feel like you're back against the wall, so they can continue to move forward? Because I'm pretty sure cancer is a very common thing that happens throughout the world. What would you tell them to give them some good boost of energy and spirit to keep fighting?
Yeah, I mean, what made this difficult is my mother-in-law passed away the summer we got married of cancer. And so all of the memories came flooding back and made us just wonder, like, what if? But my wife said, it's been clarifying. Let's have clarifying conversations, clarifying relationships, so we can really take this day by day. And when it says live in the moment, that cliche, it's really understanding how can we live most in this moment that we have that we're given. And it's been really positive to not worry about the future as much, but just to really embrace this time that we have and the opportunities and relationships that are given to us on a day-to-day basis.
I like how you said that because I feel like, especially with the technology and everything so fast paced, or just everything that's accessible, and you can just go grab it with your hands and go. We forget to live in the moment,
Yeah.
and it's like all these great things can be going around you all the time, but because you're just so focused, or when you lose focus of what's happening presently, and you're so worried about all these other distractions, you forget to live in that moment.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes, and it's not bad to plan ahead, but we have 5-year goals, 10-year goals. We have, the student loan's going to get paid off. So then I can go and get this car. Or we have all these thoughts. But especially my wife in the middle of chemo, all she's thinking about is making it through that day to focus on the next day. And it's not a 5-year plan. It's like, wow, how can I really enjoy this moment when I'm in so much pain?
Okay, so I'm gonna let you have the floor on this one to answer. The power of the mind and faith combined together. I feel like that's a great setup for you.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, I actually just preached on Sunday about the faith chapter, Hebrews 11, but brought in the faith the size of a mustard seed can move mountains. And for me, it's the faith in Jesus, but it's more, it's not like, oh, I need to do something, so let me put on Jesus now, and I'm going to utilize Jesus. But it's more, somebody said, like a hand inside of a glove, and our bodies are gloves, and God, His Spirit, His presence is the hand. Instead of me feeling like God's the glove that I use, it's just allowing Him to use me, and that's the faith aspect that really is holistic. That incorporates everything. That whether it's emotions, whether it's mental, whether it's anything, that we just allow God to impact everything. Somebody once was sharing about how priorities. We say God first, then family, then work, then leisure, recreation. But he said, really, it's not only putting priority number 22 in its rightful spot of priority 14, but it's also saying that it's not just God first, but it's God in everything. And my faith has to have everything incorporated. And so whether I'm coaching basketball at a public school or working at a public golf course, people know who I am, and I'm not preaching. Hopefully my life, my work ethic, my attitude, it really reveals and displays what's inside of me. And that's a faith that I strive to live by. I'm not perfect. I fail all the time, but it's that that knowledge of knowing in wisdom I can experience God's fullness.
Now you mentioned something that I very caught my attention to. All of it did, but it's like the moment of like a facing failure and like getting back up. And so many times in life, we're going to have different obstacles and things may not just go your way. So, tell us about a moment in time where you had a moment where like something went completely not the way you planned it. And did you have a moment of doubt? And like, how did you bounce out of that? Because sometimes people get punched in the mouth by life and they're like, forget it. I'm done. I did everything. Like, why does it always keep happening to me? So throw a little insight on that.
Yeah, well, I didn't bounce back. I kind of crawled my way out of the pit that I felt I was in, and it was slow and slow. I mean, one sport that I never had the opportunity to play, just in Vermont where I grew up, we didn't have football at the school I went to, but my friend was saying how football players know how to get back up because after you get tackled, after you get blocked and put down, you have to get back up because the next play is going to happen, and that's something that I wish I would have been able to play, but I think football players have a keen understanding of that. A specific for me, and it's kind of like a black eye on Christianity or local church because it happens. But I
Mhm.
always thought being a pastor, being a quote minister of the gospel, whatever clergy name you want to put on it. First, I always felt like I would always have a job, and second, it was like, hey, you're telling people about Jesus, so life is going to be good. But the hard reality is there's a situation. I was young, I was immature, and my boss, my supervisor, the senior pastor, he probably could have handled things better as well. But I found myself outside of vocational ministry, outside of what I went to college for. And my dad said, Jeff, we are praying that God's joy returns to your life because everything that I went to college for, everything about the relationships that I grew up trying to have, that it was bigger than just a friendship, but it was more of that relationship with Jesus. It was, it felt as though it was taken away based on my immaturity and some mistakes, based on the lead pastor and some thoughts that he had. And I'm like, I do not want to go back into vocational ministry. Give me a 9 to 5 job. I'm going to work hard. I'll still go to church. I'll still tithe. I'll still volunteer and get involved in small groups and different activities. But man, I don't want to do it again. And then God came back, and this was 7 years later. 7 years later, God opened an opportunity for me to become a director of mentoring, where some public schools allowed Christian adults to be mentors to kids off school campus after school hours, and it was just a phenomenal open door that I doubted. I was like, God, this is too good to be true. You know, I've been hurt in the past. This is a struggle for me. And it really was a reminder of the truth and relevance of my greatest strength is being weak so God can use me. And sometimes you have to allow God to mature you through the fire.
Now you just can't just say that and just like think that's the end of the question, like because that right there. No, I'm not gonna leave that alone because it's a complete transparency, and then you learn the most when you're like in the darkest moments. So you show there's a form of like a moment of weakness, but it's I feel like it's that moment when you're vulnerable and you show strength out of that. It's like courage, bravery, and so much more. And we live in a time where people like to showcase strength all the time. They don't want to showcase any kind of weakness. Like, what would you tell a person who's always having this? and don't want to reveal who they actually are behind this, to open up and so they can be themselves.
Well, two things. And I do think that whether it's Brene Brown or others, they've talked about how vulnerability is so important. So it's almost been embellished how vulnerable we can be that we want to portray. But I think the real healing, the hope, the building blocks comes with the accountability. Like, are you willing to be vulnerable enough to say, "Hey, Chris, hold me accountable on this," or are you just saying, "Hey, you know what? I struggle with that too. You know, everybody does." And I think it's so important that we allow people to hold us accountable, so we are being real, authentic, filled with integrity. But we aren't just left in that spiral, that whirlwind, but we are clawing our way with the help of others, building us up, reaching out, pulling us forward, and leading us to that deeper truth and understanding of ourselves so we can understand and relate to others better.
Awesome. And that just showed even more importance of being around great people or surrounding yourself with great influence, because it's going to make an impact into your life and decisions and much more. Um, there's one, when I was listening to you, there's something that also very caught my attention. It's like, I'm putting my own words, like it's like the finding of you. And I
Yes.
feel like so many times, even it takes, I mean, there's like no time period. I mean, like a time is just like, I know who I am. But I
Yes.
feel like so many people live this life like so long not being who they are.
Oh, it's so funny you say that because I just listened to a sermon. I love to listen to podcasts, and I listen at 1.5 speed, so I probably only catch about 30%. But the pastor was saying that we buy things we don't like with money we don't have to impress people that don't care about us.
But us.
And it's just like, whoa, why are we trying to be somebody we think is going to be well received when if we just be ourselves in our humanness, in our flaws, in our search for what's right, in our struggle with obeying God, people relate to that because that's real and that's true. And that's,
Mhm.
and so, yeah, I'm trying to stop spending money on things that I don't like with money I don't have to impress people that don't care. And so that's a big part. So,
Especially when you're in that stage like teenage, high
yeah.
school, in the early college. I mean, we all had it. Like you want to buy the nicest car, clothes, all that, and you know your accountant is ready for that. But you're like, oh, but it's just one day. All right, that one day just cost you what, $600 or $700. Okay.
Well, it's so funny because I'm 46, and I don't know if you could tell. I don't know which way to turn,
Okay.
but I have a ponytail. I don't call it a man bun. I call it like a warrior tail or whatever.
Okay.
But
All you need is the staff or something like that.
that's
Going to war.
I grew my hair out during COVID, and then
Mhm.
it took so long that I just decided to keep it long. But there have been those that have said, Jeff, I know you're a pastor, but you're kind of just trying too hard to relate to the younger generation. Or Jeff, why don't you just get it cut? And for me, I'm like, it's simply because it took forever to grow, and now I don't want to cut it off. But when people start judging or criticizing or drawing conclusions that it didn't even come into my mind. It's not like I'm trying to look younger. It's just like, it's my hair. Like, who
Mhm.
cares? But understanding that deep sense of responsibility to others, not always to protect yourself, but to be secure enough in yourself that you are doing things for the right reason. I think that's a big thing that I have to understand is with motivation, manipulation, sometimes those lines cross, and you just
Mhm.
have to know you're doing things for the right reason because you know yourself, and I would say you know who your creator and savior is, and that goes a long way.
It definitely does. It kind of reminds me of something like I think happened 3 or 4 years ago when I actually dropped down at 205 pounds. Like, it was really small, and I was feeling really good about myself. And all of a sudden, you have that one person that says, like, "Are you sick?" And I don't know why. In my mind, I was like, you know what, forget it. I thought I was good, and then you just said that, and so I threw it out the way. But I know better now, like, to have confidence in yourself and know that you're doing things for the right way, especially for health and nowadays with everything going on. As long as you know that and you're doing it the right way,
Yeah.
everything's gonna be good with everything that you're doing. So I want to know the little bit of the story of like what got you into pastoring.
So I went to a small Christian private school, kindergarten through 12th grade. I still remember it. Ninth grade, they had special services, so they brought in a speaker pastor, and he just preached, during chapel. But instead of chapel twice a week, we had it 5 days a week. And I
Mhm.
don't remember which day it was, but it was near the end of the week, and he said, "I think God is calling some of you to vocational ministry, where you're going to pursue God by preaching His word." And this is where it gets weird because our church is open to the gifts, I guess, but we aren't.
Mhm.
It's just, and so all I remember is being seated and saying yes. And the next thing I remember, I was at the front kneeling at the altar and with some of the other students and some of the teachers and the pastors were praying. I don't remember getting up and walking forward. All I remember, this is so crazy for me, is saying yes in the seat. And the next thing I knew, I was up front praying. And it was just special. In my junior year of high school, I felt God leading me to a small Bible college in New Brunswick, Canada, a Wesleyan denomination, which that's the denomination I'm now a pastor of. And it just all came together. And I just look at my parents, and my parents are phenomenal Christians, believers, not because, or not only because they know the word of God or they go to church, but they love to help people. They show empathy. They could care less or couldn't care any less if you're white, black, tall, big, whatever. They just love
Just want to love
people,
on you.
just love people. And someone in our small group, she just said, "Reduce me to love." Reduce me to love. And that's what the example was that my parents gave to me. And for me, I felt God was saying that this is the avenue I want you to do it. Just as a local church pastor, I had the privilege of officiating a funeral this past week. And it's kind of crazy because we've had 6 memorial services in 5 weeks that I've either been a part of or attended. But this one in particular, Saturday, it came because of a funeral I officiated probably 4 years ago. And then they had a relative pass away. And because they attended that funeral 4 years ago that I officiated, they asked if I would officiate their family members. And on Saturday, this was the third family member uh, that I got to be a part of that memorial service and share the hope of Jesus and give comfort to the family and just talk about what great strength we have in one another, but the joy that God gives and the peace that He has for us. And it was just a tremendous opportunity for me. And it's just amazing to see how, adopted, abandoned again. And now God's just allowing me to share hope and peace with others. And that's a great vocation for me to be a part of.
Yes, great, great, great answers. And it reminds me, especially when it comes to scripture, how I don't know. You're probably gonna get a little after, but you know how to answer this. Is it's funny how we try to be perfect all our life to be like, oh yes, this is how you do it, and in reality, every character in each book of the Bible basically had flaws, but
Yeah.
it was through their flaws that it actually uplifted so many people. And I guess
So,
what I'm trying to say is like through your flaws is how you actually help people uprise.
yeah, because everybody can relate to the broken. And I forget who said it. Somebody famous. You Google it, you'll find it. But they said, "We're simply beggars sharing bread with other beggars." And we aren't anything special. We just know that God's given us hope, so we just want to share that. And that reminder, it keeps me humble, but it also allows me to find rest in who God says He is and who He says I am.
Gotcha, gotcha. Awesome. So what other projects you got coming up?
Oh man, so quickly, I just want to hit on, if you YouTube Kevin Myers Home Run Life. Kevin Myers Home Run Life. He's a pastor of 12 Stone in Atlanta, Georgia. Home Run Life is a sermon that he did, and it's awesome. And obviously, it's about baseball, running the bases properly. He talks about in our current culture society, when we hit the ball, we run to third base instead of first base. And he said the only time that is funny is in T-ball. It's not funny in the major leagues, and as
No, it's
adults,
not.
as adults, it's not funny either. So Home Run Life, Kevin Myers, look at that. For me, last year, again when the pandemic hit, I love people. I love going out for breakfast. I love conversations, but everything was shut down. And since we moved our church services online, a friend said, "Hey Jeff, you were on radio, whatever, 8-9 years ago now, whatever it was." He said, "Start doing interviews, and especially because you stream your service, just do the YouTube channel or video." And so that really opened the door. So I started a sports one. It was a lot of local sports coaches and people. And then another friend said, "Jeff, people don't know that it's just little Vermont that you're doing, ask whoever." And that's opened the doors for me to interview a ton of people, yourself included. So they can find that at Jay
Yes.
Fuller Interviews on YouTube, Jay Fuller Interviews on YouTube. But there was one, Catherine Gordon. She was a mutual friend of somebody and suggested that I interview her. And so I sent a request, and she was so gracious. She said, "Sure, let's do it." Well, as I'm researching, I realized she's the wife of John Gordon, like the
Oh
John
wow.
Gordon, the John Gordon
Yes.
that's written a million books, and just
Books. Yeah.
it was just phenomenal to have her share her story. They wrote the book Relationship Grit together, and then from there, I actually interviewed Heather. I'm going to ruin her name, but she's wonderful with a H after the D. Wonderful.com with a H after the D. Check her out. She actually has an intense ministry for those that are battling suicidal ideations and those that have attempted suicide. And so what's going on is God's opened the door for me to meet and talk to Matt Doherty, former coach of North Carolina, the Tar Heels. Uh, some amazing people that you can find, but he's also connecting places of hope. I'm trying to stay away from the Christian words, but it's like ministries. It's people that are giving opportunity for growth and help. James Donaldson, former NBA center for the Seattle Supersonics. He's now running for mayor of Seattle. For me to
Awesome.
connect with him and talk about, how mental illness, mental health is something that we need to address. We need to talk about, and we can do it in the open, and we can do it together. And so whether it's interviewing people on my church podcast, Sam Rayner, Lifeway Ministries used to be a part of, now Church Answers. It's been awesome just to have conversations with people that I never would have been able to, except the pandemic came, like you were saying, strain, a storm, trauma, but it's provided some remarkable opportunities. So for me, I believe God wants me to be a hero maker. There's a book by Dave Ferguson, Warren Bird, called Hero Maker. And it says, instead of trying to be the hero, let's be hero makers, because that's what true discipleship is all about. And I just feel like God wants me to provide a platform where people can share their stories and others can learn from stories, so we can help one another and, really move forward during this crazy 2021. Somebody just said, we don't want to return to normal. We want to return to familiar, because we can't go back to how things were, but let's get something that's familiar, but just adapt and be agile and make the most of the new opportunities we have.
Exactly. And I like all that you just said, especially when you were talking about building relationships with people, because you never know who you're going to need help from in the
Yeah.
future. And then it's like when you help one person, it may not happen immediately, but down the road, that may just open up another opportunity. It's like basically planting your harvest, planting seeds.
Yeah,
Go
and
ahead.
it all starts with respect. I think if we look to respect people, trust is built. So you respect the relationship. You aren't trying to use people or see, oh, they know so and so, or they can help build this or whatever. But you respect people, and then over time, that trust, it turns into friendship, and then it's just like, we're just brothers. We're just trying to help each other. We're the family of God. We're just in this all together. Beggars sharing bread with other beggars. So it's not, hey, Chris, I'm trying to use you so I can gain a greater following, a greater attention. It's like, hey, man, like, sure, I'll share what God's done in my life, and you share what you've been a part of, and let's be blessed and encouraged by each other's story. And I think that's a great place to be.
Awesome, awesome. As we close things out, like, what do you want to leave the audience with, like a closing statement, and then make sure they let you let them know where to find you.
Yeah, I'll do that first. So Jay Fuller Interviews on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Jay Fuller Interviews stands for my name, Jeff Fuller, Jay Fuller Interviews. Also, the Backfire Podcast with Jeff Fuller of Jay Fuller Interviews on Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts. Our church that I pastor is Living Hope Wesleyan Church, hopeforvermont.org. Hope, the word for, F-O-R, Vermont spelled out .org. So hopeforvermont.org. What I want to tell people is, you matter. Your life matters. And when we talk or hear about the cancel culture, if there's a sin or something in your past that fills you with shame and guilt, and you are so concerned or worried that people might find out, it's okay. Like, you are not that person. And if you have a tendency to return to that proclivity, then break free and know there is freedom and healing. And you do not have to be that person that's filled with guilt and shame and be reduced to the lowest common denominator. Know that you matter, that somebody needs to hear your story. And I would say someone is waiting for you to lead. So the days that you don't want to, know that someone is waiting for you to lead, because they want to follow your example as you follow your faith. And that's what I'd share.
Who's just gonna leave us off with a heavy statement like that? They're gonna be like, "Ooh, wait a minute, man! I should get up out the bed now." But like, enjoyed your time, and much more of you giving great value to the audience. They're gonna replay this multiple times and all that. That's what it's all about: sharing people's stories, journey, and much more, so we can learn from each other. And it's like, what are you saying? It's like beggars asking, "Help me out."
Beggars sharing bread with other beggars.
There we go. Because I was about to mess it all thing up. It's your host, Chris Holmes. As always, another great episode of Next Level Thinking, and I have my guest by the name of
Jeff Fuller.
Awesome, awesome. Make sure you share, subscribe, and keep the message going, because your voice, your life matters. So take it to the next level. Peace.